Thank you everyone for being here today. It's great that we can all get together and for the Human Services and Community Initiatives Committee meeting. We will begin with a roll call. Amy, I'm not sure which staff member is going to be doing their roll call. If we could do that now. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When I call your name, please unmute and please share your affiliation. Councilmember Campbell.
Present.
Councilmember Klein. Vice Mayor Conde. Councilmember Dorsey.
I'm here.
Thank you. Councilmember Duff.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Ellis. She should be joining shortly. Councilmember Galindo Elvira. Vice Mayor Garland.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Graham. Councilmember Guy. Councilmember Stokes as proxy for Councilmember Patina. Councilmember Stokes?
Yes, present, sorry.
That's okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And Councilmember Bongiovanni.
Yes, present.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. We have quorum.
All right, thank you very much. So we'll move on to item number 2, which is call the audience. Do we have anybody in audience? That is a no.
Madam Chair, we do not have anyone in the audience, nor have we received any comments from the public for this meeting.
All right, great. Then we will move on to item number 3, but we don't have any informational items, so we'll skip number 3 and we'll move on to item number 4, which is our consent agenda for item 4A. There's one on here and it's for our December 5th, 2024 meeting minutes. Does any member of the committee have any questions or request a presentation on that item? Hearing none, can we have a motion to approve our consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. So all in favor for approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Madam Chair,
Right.
sorry, we do need to see the person.
Oh, yep, that's
or
it.
we have to do a roll call vote.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Will those participating in the meeting now take part in the voice vote by turning on their cameras? Sorry, I skipped that part. And unmuting their audio. We need to see the faces of everyone to participate in the voice vote. For those who cannot or do not want to turn on their cameras, staff will conduct a roll call vote. Staff will only call on those virtual participants who did not turn on their camera. Members, please leave your camera on until after the roll call vote, so that staff can count the people's names who are on camera. Okay, so I apologize. Can we, I can't tell, Amy, if everybody's cameras are on?
They are.
Madam
Okay.
Chair, Councilmember Bongiovanni does not have his camera on, so we'll need to do a roll. Oh, there he is. Okay, thank you,
Sorry,
Councilmember.
All right, so
driving,
we'll
I'm
do,
sorry.
I
That's okay,
appreciate,
thank you. Be safe.
so can I have a voice vote? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. All right. Amy, are we good on the voice vote? You saw everybody? Okay.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody. We appreciate that. And now we're going to move on to item number 5, which is the proposed new committee structure. We are considering a new committee structure that will help us to align the regional planning with local priorities in an efficient manner. The draft proposal has been shared with everybody and was part of the agenda packet. And this is an important conversation for us to be able to have. And I'm going to turn this over to Amy.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Excited to be able to have this conversation with you. We've been talking for months now, actually since August, about the Regional Human Services Assessment underway. We're very thankful to everyone who's provided feedback. We've received feedback from you during our committee meetings. We've also received feedback via over 100 different surveys that were collected. We conducted nearly 36 different interviews, and we heard a lot from folks, and people very much value MAG's role in regional human services planning. We also very much heard an appetite for action. So really wanting to make sure that people are able to impact change beyond approving the minutes from the last meeting. So people want to take action. They want to make changes that are really positively impacting their communities throughout the entire region. A new structure is being proposed to help us facilitate and achieve that goal. And we are very much looking forward to any feedback that you might have. Just last Tuesday, the MAG Human Services Technical Committee did recommend approval of this new structure. We can absolutely make any changes and are eager for your feedback and hopefully for your support moving forward. If we can move to the next slide, please. So this is our current committee structure. Right now within Human Services, we have 4 main committees. The Maricopa Regional Continuum of Care is kind of being held separate from this. They have their own strategic planning underway right now. And so the changes that we're talking about will not directly affect the continuum of care. They will maintain their structure. This very much does affect, though, the other 3 committees. When the MAG Human Services Division was formed back in 1976, so almost 50 years ago, we only had the 2 committees that you see on the left, this committee and the Human Services Technical Committee. A number of you have been on this committee for years, and we are so grateful for your service. Some are just joining us for the first time, and we're thankful for your fresh set of eyes on this work as well. So over the past almost 50 years, a number of changes have taken place, including adding 2 new committees. The MAG Regional Domestic Violence Council came to MAG, was formed at MAG 25 years ago. We just celebrated their anniversary last October. And the Maricopa Regional Continuum of Care also came to MAG 25 years ago. That's not a MAG committee necessarily, but MAG serves as a staffing entity for that effort, and we work very closely with them. The Maricopa Regional Continuum of Care has more recently also added a number of collaboratives to help them achieve their mission. So over the years, we've had some pretty significant changes, but they've been made very incrementally. You know, we haven't necessarily taken a step back before to say, if we were to develop a structure to conduct regional human services planning, would the structure that we have be the structure that we would create? And what we heard during the interviews is maybe not. Sometimes this can be a bit siloed. You know, we have one committee addressing domestic violence. Well, domestic violence and homelessness, for example, intersect all the time. One person might have a number of issues that they're facing. One community might have a number of issues that they're facing, but we have kind of separate activities to address those. And so part of what we heard is that people wanted a more holistic approach to this work, that they wanted it to be more seamless, and they wanted the focus to be on impact over process. And so it's still very important to have meetings like this that are open to the public. It's also really important to be able just to really dig in and start driving towards action to bring back to groups like this. And so if we can go to the next slide, please. This is the proposed structure. So essentially, what's being proposed is that we would form a new overarching a new overarching community initiatives coordinating committee. We would dissolve this committee, the Human Services Technical Committee, and the Domestic Violence Council. It's been a huge priority for me, though, to honor the work that you've done, the investment that you've made, the dedication that you've shown to these efforts, and make sure that as many people as want to have seats on this new bus that we're creating. And so in dissolving these 3 committees, it doesn't at all mean that we're dissolving our relationship with you. We hope to maintain that and even strengthen it, because we're able to catalyze more concrete actions by working together in this new structure. And so we would have the new committee formed that would include the elected officials, such as yourselves. It would also include community partners. So think of like the CEO or the executive director of a nonprofit agency, the head of a local foundation, for example. So really bringing in the high-level decision makers who can help to determine what is our strategic direction, and what do we need in order to achieve this new direction. And that's where the action teams come in. And so the action teams would be open to the subject matter experts. Think of the Community Initiatives Committee as being more the generalists. You're the high-level leaders in your communities, and you oversee work in a number of different areas. Versus the action teams would be more at the staff level. We wouldn't have staff on this on the overarching committee. The staff would be on the action teams, including having a scoping team. Now, the scoping team would be the exception. They would continue meeting throughout the year, and they would be an ongoing resource for you. So if you need someone to do legwork on a particular issue for you, and it's not quite risen to the profile of an action team yet, you would ask your scoping team to do that research for you and report back to you. In general, though, the action teams would be formed with a very specific and time-limited scope of work that operates according to a specific schedule. So we want to be done with this in 6 months or a year or maybe 2 years. And it would also have a set of deliverables. And when the action team has achieved that work, they disband. What this does is it helps us to bring in people at exactly the right time for the right purpose. It also allows people to go do other work. If they want to join another action team, they can absolutely do that. If they need to attend to other business outside of the structure, they have the freedom to do that as well. It gives them kind of a graceful exit. It makes really good use of our resources that we have right now and streamlines that process. And it helps us to be able to engage with people on really concrete actions and really being able to do more of the project work. It would reduce our administrative burden or responsibility, I should say. So there'd be less time needed to do minutes and agendas and more time available to do the project work that I think we're all really hungry for. So that was really the impetus behind this, is how can we do more together and what is the structure needed to support that in a really inclusive way. Now, what you don't see on the screen are stakeholder lists. These would act as kind of an on-call editorial board. So Arizona State University, for example, has an editorial board. Different journals will have an editorial board. And that's where we would really have the deep subject matter experts, and they would be on call. So if we need help with reviewing a report, they could provide that assistance. When we have a new action team that's being formed, we would put out the call and we would reach out to the associated stakeholder list for people who want to serve on that action team. And so we can maintain the relationships that we've developed over the past almost 50 years now and really be able to strengthen them because we're doing more together and we're giving people a seat on the bus that fits in with their time and with their expertise. Somebody might be an expert, for example, in domestic violence, but maybe they don't want to come to a meeting 6 times a year. You know, maybe they just don't have the time for that. But maybe they can come to meetings for a couple months as we develop, for example, the activities for Domestic Violence Awareness Month, or we're engaged in addressing domestic violence from a new system. It also gives us an opportunity to be more interdisciplinary. And so, for example, a huge need for domestic violence survivors is housing. But we have one committee addressing housing, another one addressing domestic violence, versus the action team. We bring together the housing experts, the domestic violence experts, and maybe even another kind of expert. And we bring them all together to figure out what's the answer to this question or what's the solution for this problem. So it helps us be really nimble and very, very efficient. At the same time, the continuum of care would continue operating the way that it is. They may be making changes, but that's up to their board. And we would increase the communication. So for example, as we're looking at designated seats for that community initiatives coordinating committee, we might have a designated seat for someone to represent the Maricopa Regional Continuum of Care. Other designated seats that we've heard from folks so far, and we can get into more discussion about this with the operational plan item that follows this, is talking about having an east-west balance for our local government serving on this committee. And really being mindful that member agencies are driving this committee with support, with input from other community leaders as well. We can go to the next slide, please. So a little bit more detail then about the action teams. They are envisioned to be, again, with the exception of that scoping team, they are envisioned to be time limited. They might meet for 6 months, it might meet for a year, a longer project might take 18 months or something like that. But when they're done with that project, they're done meeting. And then they disband, and that creates capacity to take on other initiatives and to bring on the appropriate leaders to make that happen. Each action team would have a sponsor from the new Community Initiatives Coordinating Committee. It's important to keep that line of communication between the action teams and the committee. And also the committee is our conduit to our MAG Regional Council. So it helps us to have an elected officials talking to other elected officials, you know, kind of peer to peer. So the leadership then, we're proposing that Vice Mayor Garland would be the new chair of this new committee, and that Councilmember Ellis from Chandler, that she serve as the vice chair for the new committee. She's the vice chair of our Domestic Violence Council. We really want to make sure that we're fully incorporating the interest, the identity of the Domestic Violence Council in this work moving forward. And so we're proposing to have the leadership be a combination of those two committees. The work that we've been doing, for example, we're just wrapping up our work this year for the Social Services Block Grant and those allocation recommendations. We can still continue that work. It could be through an action team. So maybe we start meeting over the summer. Do we have the right methodology in place? What other data do we need? And then they follow that through, and then they present the recommendations first to the new committee, to the Community Initiatives Coordinating Committee, and then it goes on to Management Committee and Regional Council for their final approval. But really looking to these teams to be very nimble, very efficient, and to bring in the best expertise and to be very inclusive. Again, trying to make sure that we can continue engaging everyone who's been engaged to date. We can go to the next slide, please. These are the different different opportunities to participate. We hope that all of you as elected officials would have an interest in being a member of this new committee, the new Community Initiatives Committee. We will have a limited number of geographically balanced seats. So we'd want to make sure that we hear about your interest early. The process to start seating that new committee would begin pending regional council approval and approval of the membership criteria. That process would begin in May. We would have an application process for the community partners, but we would just be asking for letters of interest from the elected officials. So slightly different ways to identify the right representatives. But then we would have an evaluation team putting together a membership slate. And that membership slate would then be presented to Management Committee and Regional Council for their approval in June. So MAG Regional Council would have the ability to approve the membership criteria upfront, and then they would also be approving that membership slate. On an ongoing basis, we may take on a model such as what Transportation Policy Committee uses right now, where we would have the member serving terms that are staggered, so maybe half are rolling off at a time. And then we would go out and say we need letters of interest from elected officials for these geographic areas, and East Valley, West Valley, Central, and then we would have an application process then to reseat those community partners. They might be able to renew their membership, or maybe we're just looking for new members, but there'd be an opportunity just to reassess the membership and the level of interest from folks so that they can be involved. We also have opportunities then on those action teams. The action teams will be project specific. So if you're not wanting to be on a committee year round, maybe it's just for a few months. If your passion is around a particular project, whether it's housing or domestic violence or health, you would still have that opportunity. And of course, the stakeholder list. The stakeholder list, we can have as many people as wanted on those lists. It's really our cadre of experts in the field who can help advise on different points as this work progresses. In order to support the new committee in setting the strategic direction, we might have a retreat such as the one that we're talking about on March 18th, where we would invite all members of the committee, the action teams, the stakeholder list, any other kind of community stakeholders who might be interested, bringing them together to say what's happening right now in your communities, what's important to your communities, and how can we address that, support that through these regional efforts. Part of this also is thinking about human services maybe a bit more broadly, particularly for smaller communities. They might not have a human services department, and so they might not think of it as human services needs or human services work. But if we think about it in terms of what are the needs of your residents and how can we help you meet those needs, that broadens the lens just a bit. And so that's why it's called community initiatives as opposed to human services. And so with that event, we're able to cast a broad net to address community initiatives and then be able to determine collectively together, what do we want to achieve in this next 1 year to 2 years? What can we do together better than we can do on our own? And so we're excited about having that. It might be one event, it might be a series of events, it might be virtual or by email. Really look to the committee to help us flesh that out. Once the committee is formed, they will be developing a charter, and that charter will help to lay out some of this work as well. You can go to the next slide, please. This is a timeline then. HSTC did vote on this last week. They were very enthusiastic about it, and they voted on it unanimously to recommend approval. We're offering that action for you today as well. We also have a DV Council meeting actually this Thursday. We had scheduled 2 meetings for them because they had not heard about the proposal yet. And so they had the opportunity to vote on it this week, or they can vote on it next month on February 20th. But at that point, then we'd be asking for action. For the meeting this week, it's possible action. In March 18th, hopefully that's all on your calendars. That's from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. here at the MAG office. Really excited about folks who will be joining us for that. So for example, Neil Giuliani, former Tempe mayor, current director of Greater Phoenix Leadership, he will be joining us as a speaker. And I have other invites out as well right now. And so excited about that opportunity because it'll be all of us coming together to talk about how we're moving forward in this new direction pending regional council approval. And the next agenda item for today is to get your input on what should be included in the operational plan. So how do we implement this? And then we'll be bringing that to you in March then for your recommendation for approval as well. In May, that's when we would open up the membership process for this new committee. circling back with Management Committee Regional Council in June for approval on that membership slate. July is when we would start laying the foundation for the development of the charter and the stakeholder list to make sure that we're working with people really broadly, really inclusively. And then August, full steam ahead. And that's when we really start meeting and start digging into this new structure. Next slide, please. So that is the action for you today. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions or comments that you might have at this time. This item is slated for action for recommendation for approval should you choose to take that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. That's a lot of information, but all that information is in our packet. So thank you so much. Do we have any questions from our committee?
This is Rick Stokes. So just to clarify, I'm the new council member in Peoria, so Bill Patina is no longer present. So I just found out about this. So I'm playing, very much playing catch up on this. I have the packet. I will review everything that you have on YouTube. If you have anything else for me, please forward that. I'm definitely interested in this type of project, so I appreciate that it's here and that you're pushing it forward. So I look forward to more stuff down the road.
Thank you, Rick.
Madam Chair, Councilmember Campbell has her hand raised.
Okay, Councilmember Campbell.
Councilmember Campbell, you're on mute.
I'm sorry, I forgot it was on mute. I just want to ensure or be told that it will be fairly balanced between East and West, because so often the West Valley is not really incorporated in so much of MAG's decisions. And I want to be sure that by doing this new structure, we're not cut out of the patch.
Madam Chair and Councilmember Campbell, absolutely. I share that as a priority, and absolutely it will be written into the operational plan that we have an east-west balance, that the same number of seats for the East Valley, the same number of seats for the West Valley, and then one for Central, possibly one for the Native Nations as well. But no, it's critically important that we hear from all portions, from all areas within the region in an equitable way. So absolutely, yes.
And remind me how many seats will be on this
You know,
new configuration.
we are still developing that. The next agenda item is to get your input on the size of the committee, different criteria for membership. And so for example, last week at the HSTC meeting, they did recommend approval of this new structure. And then in the next agenda item that they had on the operational plan, they really emphasized the importance of having that east-west balance. So that is being written right now into the operational plan. I was just working on it this morning. And that is something that will be provided to you soon, so that you can vote on that at the March 18th event.
Okay, I think I'm the only past chair of Human Services left on the committee. Everybody else is gone. Allie Klein did not run for re-election. She was defeated for mayor, so she's no longer on this committee.
Right.
She's no longer even on council. And so I'm just wanting to make sure that, yeah, I'm a little hesitant, but I understand why you're trying to do it. But let me keep thinking about it, okay?
Okay, thank you, Councilmember. And you know, and something else to keep in mind too is that we would be requesting letters of interest, and so that we could get new council members from other communities, or new council members from those same communities who have been represented. Because we did have a number of council members roll off the committee because they're no longer in office. So we would definitely be wanting to augment the representation from different parts of the region who may not be on the committee currently, just because of different circumstances.
And I will say, Wally, also, I hear what you are saying about an east-west balance, and I 100% agree that it is important for us to do. And that once we look at, and if we approve this committee structure on item number 6, when we move on to the operational, I think then that's where we can mention it, or you can mention it again, and we'll make sure that we get that in the minutes, that is exactly what we want to have happen.
Okay, because you know, once this is adopted and it's rolling, if it's not spelled out with the representation equally, you're just left out. You're not at the table. You're not part of the conversation. You can come and visit with the committee, but you're not part of finding a solution either. And as vice mayor, I'm really intent on getting our voice heard on what's going on in the West Valley. Not all the West Valley participates, and that's a shame. But those of us that are participating, we really appreciate everything MAG can do to help us move forward. So
I think it's important for us to make sure that we are reaching out to communities, even if they haven't been on this committee before. I
yes,
think it's really important that we are going to reach out to them and let them know what we are doing and how we are doing it, and that we want them to participate.
absolutely, Doreen. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ellie.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
this is Councilmember Dorsey from El Mirage. I have a question. If we have a representative on the domestic violence committee and the present one, and also me on this one, for instance, would you be looking to have just one elected representative on the CICC from each city?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Councilmember Dorsey. So we would have a limited number of seats because we're balancing between being inclusive and also having a committee where it's practical to function, and achieve quorum. So a difference. So on this committee, for example, every community can have a representative. Not every community does. On this new committee, we would have a more limited number of seats. So for example, it might be 5 seats from the East Valley, 5 seats from the West Valley, for example. So then we would be looking to the communities to work together to identify who do they want to be serving on this. Another potential option is that a community could for example, that a community could be serving in a seat that's not just a local government seat. So for example, if there's a funding, like a funder seat or a domestic violence seat, then if there's a council member who's been very involved with the domestic violence efforts, then they could express interest in serving in that seat. But at a minimum, we would have the same number of seats for East Valley, West Valley. The number that we were just talking about earlier today internally was to have 5 seats available for each part of the region.
I think that's a really good question that was just asked. And I think one of the things that I had asked when I joined the HSCS committee was, I have another council member who is just as interested in all of these issues that I am. And I had asked, can she come? And Amy had said, yes, she can come, but she'd be a non-voting member. But she could still come and participate. I think with this new committee structure, I would say it would probably be one person from your community that would be on this board. But then we also have the action committees, which somebody from your same community would be able to be participating in those action committees. So they would still be part of this, but they could be on an action committee instead.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. And so there's a number of different ways that people can be involved. They can be involved as a voting member of the committee itself. They can be on the action team, or they can be on the stakeholder list. And then once a year, if we have that big event, then I mean that would be anybody and everybody who wants to come in and be part of this. But the idea is to have a group that's big enough to be inclusive, but small enough to be able to take action. Because if we don't get quorum for a committee, then they can't meet. So that's why we're looking at it a little bit differently in terms of this new structure. And just want to welcome Councilmember Ellis to the meeting. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions regarding the committee, or Councilmember Ellis? We're just asking for questions regarding the proposed new committee structure. If you have any questions for us.
No questions, just a comment how I think that's really going to facilitate us. This is one of the issues that we had in the past where this committee could not meet all the time because we couldn't really have a good infrastructure of how to move forward. And I think staff has done such an amazing job putting us into context now to do some great work. So I really appreciate it, and would like to thank everyone, Miss Amy and her team, for bringing things forward for us on from now on. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Councilmember Giovanni, I'll let you know that you're not muted.
Oh, Sorry, I'm trying to
That's
do
okay.
that right
Thank
now.
you. Thank you. And thank you very much, Councilmember Ellis, for that, for your support.
I didn't know if all of you heard, but I am the vice mayor now, and then and I would like to also say congratulations to our chair. She's currently also the vice mayor of Tempe.
And Wally just said that told us she's vice mayor. This is we're pretty stacked heavy on vice mayors.
That sounds amazing. And get ready, ladies. You're gonna get an email from me soon.
Do we have any other questions regarding the proposed new committee structure? If we have no other questions, I would like to call for a motion.
Madam Mayor, I would move to approve the proposed new committee structure as proposed.
Thank you very much. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you so much. We will now have members take part in the voice vote by turning on their cameras and unmuting their audio. For those who cannot or do not want to turn on their cameras, we will conduct a roll call vote. Members, please leave your cameras on until after the roll call vote. Can I have a voice vote from members? Those in favor say aye.
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 And those opposed say nay. Amy, were you able to get all of the members?
Madam Chair, Vice Mayor Ellis, how do you vote, please?
Aye.
Thank you. Madam Chair, the motion passes.
All right, thank you very much. We appreciate that. Thank you. I'm glad the motion passed. And it's, I just want to say thank you so much to everybody who has been on this committee. It is the HSCS committee has done a lot of really good in the Maricopa County, and I am excited that we are now looking to move forward and to take that courageous step to create this new committee that we are looking at now, the CICC. So thank you so very much, everybody, for all your work that we've done. So we will move on to item number 6, and item number 6 is operational planning for the new committee structure. So we're closing the door on one committee, and now we need to begin planning how we want to implement this new structure. We will be looking at this a lot at the joint retreat in March, on March 18th. Again, if we can make sure that we put that on our calendars to attend live here at MAG. And so I will go ahead and turn this over to you again, Amy, to talk about what we're going to do for the operational planning.
Madam Chair, thank you very much, and members of the committee. If we can go to the next slide, please. So we do have this event. It's from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. This will be an in-person event here at the MAG offices. We'll be on the second floor in the SOAR room. We do hope that you'll be able to attend. We'll provide lunch, free parking, dessert, whatever we need to do to get you here. Please come. We'd love to have your input at this meeting. We're inviting some other community partners as well, such as local foundations, larger nonprofits. I'm really wanting to make sure that we have just the best and brightest minds in human services and community initiatives helping and attending at this event. So with the operational plan, we'll be offering that. Well, let me back up. We're looking for your feedback today. We did receive feedback from HSTC last week, in particular on the East-West balance. That was a big issue for them as well. We share that as a priority, and so that will be going into the operational plan. If there are other membership criteria, if there are other ideas that you have either about meeting frequency, structure, who should be there, what do those lists look like, anything like that, please let me know. I'd love to be able to work that into the operational plan. We will be sharing that with you probably early February. We want to make sure that you have ample opportunity to take a look at it before the March 18th event. At the March 18th, if we do have quorum for the 3 committees, then we'll be asking for a recommendation approval on that plan as well. And then both the plan and the proposed new structure would be going to Management Committee and Regional Council for their approval in April. So right now then is when I'd love to offer you the opportunity to provide your thoughts on what this should look like. So geographic balance is written into the committee membership now. We want to make sure that that's reflected. Also, if there's high priority sectors that you want to make sure are included, such as foundations, the generalist nonprofit agencies, really seeing the committee as the generalists, and then the action teams as those subject matter experts, along with the stakeholder list, who would be the subject matter experts as well. Looking for your feedback on role within the agency or community. So for example, would it be just the executive directors from the nonprofit agencies to make sure that we get that top level leadership and the decision makers who can come into the room and really help to drive change? For the committee leadership, we really do see the chair and vice chair as being the conduits to regional council. Again, peers talking with peers is just always more successful. And then looking to community leaders who might be on the committee, but do they have a leadership role? Maybe, maybe not. So looking for input on that. Also, if you have ideas about how you might like to see those scopes of work developed, I do see that as being the primary responsibility of the scoping action team to be able to provide you their feedback, their technical expertise in terms of what those scopes of work should look like, which action team should be deployed. And then if you have thoughts about how often. Right now, I'm seeing the new committee is meeting quarterly, and then the action team's meeting is needed according to their specific timeline. And then I don't know that the stakeholder list would necessarily be meeting, with the exception of maybe that annual event where we're really wanting to bring everyone together. And again, that could be an event, or it could be a survey, it could be something virtual. Also looking for your feedback on that as well. Yes.
Yeah, Amy, I have a couple questions. So one, just from the conversation that we had here, where it says geographic balance, I would put high priority on that.
Okay.
You've got high priority on the sectors such as local tribal governments, which I think is great. But as Wally had mentioned, and I think it's really important that we put high priority on that. That is the best for the county itself. And then is this where we would be mentioning that we would like to have a specific amount of people on this committee? Okay. And just as an example, what is the TPC? What is their breakdown?
So the majority of the members are elected officials, and then they also have business sector representatives. The way that we're looking at this right now is that'd be 2 to 1. So for every 2 member agencies, we would have one community partner. That ensures that it's member agencies really driving this effort with support from top leadership from community partners. But 2/3 would be elected officials from our member agencies, and then 1/3 would be the community leaders. And right now we're thinking about a committee size of maybe about 17 people. Again, broad enough to be inclusive, but small enough to be nimble and still be able to get quorum.
Well, I think this new committee is going to be so much fun. We're going to have quorum every time because people are going to just love being there, because we're working, we're getting things done, and we're meeting face to face, and we're going to enjoy each other and have fun doing this. So
I agree.
Definitely.
Do we have any input from any other member that would like to add something to our operational plan?
I have a question too.
Yes, Monica.
So when it says geographic balance, is that also taking into consideration smaller communities and as opposed to larger communities? I mean, as development continues in the West Valley and El Mirage is landlocked, we're going to win the smallest community in the West Valley award, I'm pretty sure, very soon, if we don't already have that one. But that, and I don't think we're the only city in the area in Maricopa County that's looking at that demographic. But so how is that taken into consideration here?
Absolutely, Madam Chair and Councilmember Dorsey. That was raised by the Human Services Technical Committee as well. They wanted the geographic balance to be defined not just by east-west, but also by size. So smaller communities, like maybe under 50,000 and then over 50,000. We may also have seats for Native Nations as well. So maybe have one seat there to ensure the representation. Also, because MAG does serve Maricopa County as well as portions of Pinal County. For example, there could be a Pinal County seat. But yes, we need to look at geographic balance, not just by where the community is, but also by the size. In particular, when I was talking about the reframing from human services to community initiatives, that really came to mind when I was conducting the interviews with the smaller communities, because when I asked them about human services, they said, well, we don't have a human services department. I'd say, but what about the needs of your residents? And they're doing a lot to try and meet the needs of their residents, but they had to approach those needs really differently than communities who just might have more resources. And so
Right.
the work manifests really differently depending on what size community you're in. There's certainly common elements, but there are some distinctions that are important to keep in mind that would be best represented by having smaller communities serving on the committee as well.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's really important. That was a great question. All right. Do we have any other questions or recommendations for this committee?
Madam Chair, I do have a question, if that's okay.
Yes.
I was wondering about meeting frequency. So for this committee, does quarterly work for folks? I want to keep it often enough to keep people really informed and engaged, but not so often that we lose people who are just too busy to come, like say to a monthly meeting, you know? So if you're thinking about the CEO or the executive director, you as vice mayors, you're incredibly busy. Does quarterly work for you?
For me personally, and I think, what does other council members, other members believe?
I'm good with quarterly.
Yeah,
Okay.
quarterly
Yeah.
works fine.
I think that's fine too.
I'm good quarterly also.
Quarterly is good too for me. Thank you.
Thank you for asking that, Amy. I would say quarterly, but I'd also say if there are updates that we could get monthly. I mean, so if the action committees are meeting monthly or at a more regular pace, it would be nice then to send out an update in between our meetings, if that's possible, to the committee.
I'm sure that's a great idea. And actually, we used to have a broader human services newsletter that would go out monthly. We could certainly reinstitute that, and that would be a great way to keep people engaged and also help to cross-fertilize because the teams might, I mean, hopefully we would be scoping this out as part of the process, but once the action teams are deployed, they might find that they have opportunities to work together if they know about each other's work. So yes, agreed. I think we could achieve some really good returns on that investment.
Okay, great. Thank you. And the time, meeting over lunch where we can feed everybody.
We could probably make that happen. Yes.
Alrighty. Food gets people to attend, so
Yes,
we can do that.
absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. If we have no other recommendations, Amy, are you comfortable with us moving on?
Yes, Madam Chair. Thank you. I appreciate the
All right. Thank you, everybody, for your input and your help with that. So then we will move on to item number 7, which is a request for future agenda items. Are there any requests for agenda items at the March 18th retreat? Committee, do we have any recommendations?
I think just working on the new concept for this committee is going to take the entire meeting.
I think you're right.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Okay. All right. So if we're good, moving on with that, Amy, we have the big item on there that we were already going to be working on, which is a new committee structure. All right. Item number 8, comments from the committee. Does anyone have brief updates or news to share with the committee? If you have questions for one another, please reach out to them after the meeting. We are not allowed to discuss or take action on any comments shared at this time. And if you are sharing about a new program or initiative, please include the source of funding and any impacts achieved. Committee, do we have any comments? I don't see anybody with their hand raised. All right, so we'll go ahead and move on. Thank you very much, committee. We will move to adjournment. Again, I just want to say thank you so much to everybody for attending our meeting today. Welcome, Rick, as being somebody new. It's been an honor to serve as your committee chair, and I look forward to us getting together and talking more about this at our retreat on March 18th. And Amy, I just want to thank you and the staff for always being very helpful to us on this committee, and I look forward to what we can do together. So thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Yeah. Tyler, thank you. Appreciate your help with that.
Yeah, yeah, of course.